Every time I ask him a direct question, he says I'm being insecure. Not mean. Not yelling. Just calm. Like he's diagnosing me. Last night I asked why he turned his phone face down when I walked into the kitchen. That was it. I didn't accuse him of anything. I just said, "Why do you always flip it over like that?" He leaned back against the counter, crossed his arms and said, "You're projecting again." Projecting what? I didn't even know. I was asking about the phone. That's how most of our conversations go now. I bring up a behavior. He brings up my personality. He says I struggle with trust. He says my nervous system is hyper-alert because of my past. He says he's emotionally intelligent enough to see patterns. Mine specifically. And the thing is, I do believe in self-reflection. I journal. I've been in therapy before. I know I can be anxious. I know I overthink sometimes. So when he says those things, I don't immediately fight him. I actually stop and consider it. That's the part that confuses me. Because I'll start with something simple like, "Why did you tell me you were at your brother's and then I saw your location at a bar?" And instead of answering that, he'll say, "This is what you do. You latch onto small details and create narratives." I'll ask again, "But why did you say you were at your brother's?" And he'll sigh, "You're focusing on the wrong thing." He never actually answers the question. Somehow we end up talking about my attachment style. Daily it looks like this. I notice something specific. He zooms out and makes it about my patterns. If he comes home 2 hours later than he said and I ask what happened, he says, "Why are you monitoring me?" If I say it bothered me that he liked his ex's picture at 1 a.m., he says, "You're insecure because you compare yourself." If I ask who he was texting when we were watching a movie and he kept smiling at his phone, he says, "You assume the worst because you've been hurt before." There's always a reason. And the reason is always me. He talks about boundaries a lot. He says it's not his job to regulate my emotions. He says he refuses to participate in unhealthy dynamics. He says he won't be punished for things he hasn't done. But I'm not asking him to regulate my emotions. I'm asking what he was doing. And I can hear myself now even saying this, thinking maybe I do sound obsessive. Maybe I do ask too many follow-up questions. Maybe normal girlfriends don't care about this stuff. I don't know anymore. We met at a friend's birthday dinner. It wasn't dramatic. We sat across from each other. He made a joke about the restaurant's playlist. I laughed. He asked what I did for work. I liked that he listened without interrupting. He texted me the next day, not immediately, not 3 days later. It felt steady. In the beginning, what felt safe about him was how articulate he was. He could explain his feelings. He'd say things like, "I've done the work on myself." He talked about communication being everything. He told me about his past relationships and how they failed because his exes were avoidant or chaotic. He said he learned from that. I remember thinking, wow, he's self-aware. He won't blame me for things. He understands psychology. That felt adult. The first small shift was subtle. We had been dating maybe 4 months. He went out with coworkers and didn't text me all night. When I mentioned the next day that I would have appreciated a quick check-in, he said, "You're not my parent." I laughed it off. I said I wasn't trying to control him. He said, "Good, because control issues are a red flag for me." It was small, dismissible. I told myself I didn't want to be clingy. After that, I started editing my questions. Instead of "Why didn't you call?" I'd say, "Did you have fun?" Instead of "Who's that texting you?" I'd say nothing. The pattern formed quietly. If I brought something up calmly, he'd get analytical. If I pushed for specifics, he'd get cold. Once I asked directly, "Are you still talking to your ex?" He said, "Why does that make you feel threatened?" I said, "I didn't say threatened. I asked if you're talking to her." He smiled, not warmly, and said, "This is insecurity talking." I remember feeling my stomach drop. Not because of the ex, because I couldn't get a straight answer. But when I went quiet after that, when I said, "Okay, maybe I'm overthinking," he softened immediately. He hugged me. He said, "I love that you're willing to look at yourself. That's growth." So silence gets me closeness. Questions get me distance. I've noticed that. He tells people I'm introspective. He says I'm on a self-improvement journey. When I vent to a friend, I hear myself saying, he's actually really emotionally mature. I just have stuff to work through. I defend him before they even criticize him. But here's what keeps repeating. I'll ask for clarification. He'll expand the conversation to my psychological flaws. I'll start analyzing myself instead of the situation. And he never circles back to the original question. He talks about accountability a lot, how important it is. But I've never heard him say, yeah, I should have told you that. Or I see why that looked bad. It's always, you're interpreting it through your trauma. And I do have past trauma. I've been cheated on before. I've stayed too long before. I know that about myself. So when he frames things as me repeating old patterns, I panic. I don't want to be that girl again. I don't want to sabotage something healthy. So I self-correct. If he's out late and doesn't respond, I tell myself not to spiral. If he's protective over his phone, I tell myself privacy is healthy. If he avoids answering something directly, I tell myself maybe I'm too rigid. But there's this accumulation happening. Not explosive, just layered. Like last week, he said he was working late. I stopped by the office to drop off something he forgot. His car wasn't there. I texted him, "Hey, are you still at work?" He responded 30 minutes later. "Why?" I said, "Because I'm here and your car isn't." He called me immediately. Not to explain. To ask why I was checking up on him. The conversation turned into him saying I was crossing boundaries by showing up unannounced. I ended up apologizing for not telling him I was coming. We never addressed why he said he was at work. After we hung up, I sat in my car and replayed it. I could list the facts. He said one location. He was somewhere else. I asked about it. I apologized. That's when I started to notice the pattern clearly. But noticing isn't the same as leaving. I stay because I genuinely believe I could be part of the problem. I don't want to throw away a relationship because I refuse to grow. He says relationships require self-awareness. He says most people avoid looking at themselves. I don't want to be most people. And we live together. Our names are both on the lease. Our furniture is mixed together. Our routines are intertwined. Leaving would mean explaining to my family why it didn't work after I told them he was different. It would mean admitting maybe I misread the situation. But more than logistics, it's this doubt. What if he's right? What if I am hypervigilant? What if a secure person wouldn't care about the phone being face down? What if healthy relationships don't require constant reassurance? I watch myself now. I measure my tone before speaking. I rehearse questions in my head to make sure they don't sound accusatory. I even preface things with, "This might just be my insecurity, but..." And sometimes he still says, "See? You know this is your stuff." There hasn't been a big explosion. No screaming. No undeniable proof of anything. Just this repetition where my concerns turn into case studies about my personality. And I'm tired. Not dramatic tired. Just tired of leaving conversations feeling smaller. Tired of analyzing myself more than the situation. Tired of feeling like growth only moves in one direction, mine. But I haven't left. I haven't even confronted him differently. I'm still here. Still asking questions softer than I want to. Still accepting answers that aren't answers. Tonight he's out again. He said he'd be home by 10. It's almost midnight. I typed, "Are you okay?" and deleted it 3 times before sending it. If he responds defensively, I'll probably apologize for the tone. And part of me will wonder if that's maturity. So I need to know, is this growth or deflection?